I'm Brian Markwalter. I'm Senior Vice President of Research and Standards at CTA. And again, welcome back to our Storyteller series. Our next session focuses on the new opportunities that data and automation are bringing to marketing. Our speakers from LinkedIn and GE will discuss and share real stories about evolving market capabilities and how to bring customer-centric approach to your marketing. I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. First, please welcome Andy Markowitz, General Manager of the Performance Marketing Lab at GE, which focuses on driving next-generation marketing opportunities that enhance brand recognition and commercial acceleration. Andy and his team have led this new venture by emphasizing emerging channels and platforms. Among the group's areas of focus are strategy, lead gen, channel disruption, insights and analytics, content, social media, and customer engagement. Prior to GE, Andy worked at Kraft Foods as Director of Digital Services, heading up a center of excellence for all digital activity. In this role, he led efforts to create scalable best practices by providing thought leadership in the management and development of a wide range of online marketing principles, a pipeline of emerging media opportunities, and driving digital accountability for Kraft brands. Andy is a frequent industry speaker and has received many honors, including Ad Age Digital Marketer of the Year, B2B Magazine's Marketer of the Year, and iMedia 25 Internet Marketing Leader and Innovator. Joining Andy is Penry Price, the Vice President of Global Sales for LinkedIn's Marketing Solutions business. In this role, Penry oversees the large global team responsible for building the strategic partnerships necessary to raise awareness of and drive revenue for the company and its customers. His deep knowledge and passion for the advertising ecosystem plays a significant role in the transformation of LinkedIn's advertising business as it evolves into a content marketing platform for brands. Penry joined LinkedIn from ad tech firm Distillery, where as president he provided direction for partnerships and managed day-to-day revenue and marketing operations. Prior to his tenure at Distillery, he held many top sales positions during 7 years at Google. This included leading business strategy and global partnerships with advertising agencies, a part of Google's business that represented 30% of its global revenue. In 2008, Penry was named to the AAF Advertising Hall of Achievement, which includes people who have demonstrated great leadership in the industry. He is a member of the board of directors of Church & Dwight and the Interactive Advertising Bureau. Please join me in welcoming Andy Markowitz and Penry Price.
Wow. Thank you, Brian. That took 3 minutes of our time, Brian. I'm hoping that the CTA gives that back to us. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, I don't think bios need to be rewritten so that they can be read out loud, because I never thought anyone would ever read that.
And we were talking. Andy and I were talking earlier, and as Brian mentioned, very accomplished marketer. Andy is. He's also a passionate basketball fan, especially for his Indiana Hoosiers. And oh, look at that! A couple other Hoosiers. We were talking about Yogi and his excellent performance last night in beating Wisconsin. So he's a multifaceted professional. So getting right into it, though, we did want to talk about some new sort of strategies around marketing for especially B2B. Again, Andy has experience with CPG, the agency side, .com, so he's well-versed in a lot of things. But we want to talk about sort of storytelling in relation to sort of nurturing prospects, building relationships, and thinking about relevance in today's world. The personalization of our experiences digitally is really transforming how marketing is done and how messages are received from a consumer or prospect standpoint. So in starting that, in that direction, Andy, sort of advancements lately. We talk a little bit about nurturing relevance, et cetera. What are the advancements that you've deployed from the labs at GE that have really benefited the business units that you're supporting?
So, it started, the journey really started with some base kind of things that we needed to prove out in terms of creating proof points, right, that people could really buy. When I say people, our constituents or the businesses. Because at the end of the day, people love strategy, but they buy tactics, right? They buy programs. I'll take 2 of those and I'll take 4 of those. And it was very important to kind of build those proof points and understand what could work and what could not work, and then build from there. And as we've evolved over time, we've seen some opportunities to take some fairly strategic bets. And one of them has been around marketing automation. And as we think about marketing automation, we think about it as a bullseye, right? So what can you do with marketing automation in terms of developing relationships? I tend to lean, I guess, more towards the spectrum of belief that long-term, we're on a global race for permissions. And you need to get there, and you need to have the right catcher's mitt for that. But in expanding that, one of the things that we really is one of the cornerstones of what we've done has been this partnership in bringing Marketo and LinkedIn together, where we said, okay, we had this bullseye, which was Marketo, and what we needed to do was expand our ecosystem. And we had these conversations with LinkedIn, and you guys would come in and you'd be like, well, how can we do more with you? And you wanted to sell ads, and we didn't want to buy ads. And this was before we were doing Marketo. And then over time, what we realized is that we really wanted LinkedIn to be part of our native ecosystem, right? The people that are part of your audience, that are participating on LinkedIn on a daily basis is phenomenal. And we had this vision of how do we try to expand our core target, bullseye, to include a partner like LinkedIn, and how do we do it in a way that best advances what we need to do from a business standpoint. And hence we had a conversation with LinkedIn. They said, what can we do for you? We said, we need you to get closer to Marketo. We had a conversation with Marketo, and they said, what can we do for you? We said, we need you to be closer to LinkedIn. And there I was like Yenta from Fiddler on the Roof, and I'm like, I have an idea. And so we brought you guys together, and it's been a real pillar for us.
And so marketing automation, and I'm sure everybody's very familiar, but that in itself is a very I'm trying to say, like, that in itself is storytelling. And so how do you guys sort of think about storytelling utilizing these sort of technologies now?
Well, the storytelling component of it actually ladders up to a much larger component, which is customer experience, right? And CX is, as we call it internally, is very much a hot topic today. And what Marketo and marketing automation allows you to do is storytelling as a component of that, but create a larger grade industrial strength kind of opportunity to drive personalization and customization and put the right story in the hands of the right person at the right time based on what their behaviors are. So if you can score those behaviors, understand what they are, and create the right cadence, it allows you to provide storytelling opportunities in ways that we haven't been able to in the past. So in that kind of context, marketing automation almost gets you to this Amazon-esque experience. And I'm not saying that we're there. It's a long journey to get there, but that's the expectation, right? To provide that dynamic environment. And that's the journey that we're on.
That's the journey. And so have you started to see some of the real benefits, and sort of, again, not sharing something that you can't share publicly, but sort of benefits that you really thought you'd see? Are there different things that have been advances, or have there been things you sort of expected to see have started to come to fruit?
Well, so there's a couple things, and I'm probably going to take this in one or two different paths than maybe we had intended. But first off, the program with LinkedIn has been terrific, right? And I'm a New Yorker, so I'm not nice to anyone. So when I say it's been really good, it's been good. We've had good opportunity to identify anonymous visitors, nurture them, and develop them into leads, and actually turn over some of them into wins. And in a B2B company, as many of you probably know, the sales cycle is not 4 days. The sales cycle can be upwards of 18 months, depending on the product. So we're seeing success, and we're pleased. That's number one. Number two, I think the cultural component of doing something like this yields benefits beyond just leads, which is always good, or sales, which is always good. The more you buy, the more people bring to you. Part of the agreement that we made, as an example, when we started doing this together, was we wanted to be part of the product development roadmap development with you guys, so that when other things come to pass, we could be there to play. When we made the announcement with between LinkedIn and Marketo and GE, people start calling us. You create this culture of innovation so new ideas come to you. So there is the core benefit, which is you can drive business results, and there is the very nice ancillary benefit of when you're buyers, people bring you ideas, and then you start to get some new things that you didn't know were possible to bring to light.
And so related to that, because again, I think probably some folks in the audience are in your position, which would be sort of the center of excellence for an organization, and they have to be the sort of out in front, try to test things, understand things before they scale within organizations. So if some of these concepts work, whether it be marketing automation or sort of nurturing paths or products, how long do you test them? What's your process to scale? Because it's GE, you've got, obviously large goals, many business units. How do you sort of take an idea or a test and start to think about scale?
So there are, I think, indicators of success in that. So one is, if someone said, we do a lot of seeding with stuff. So corporate marketing will have a budget, and we'll want to work with one of the businesses, say power and water, oil and gas, whatever it is, healthcare. And we might say, we think that Marketo is a key thing for us. Let's 50-50 and let's bring this to market. So we create this kind of seed fund to get to a deliverable of what success could look like. Let's drive revenue. And we create a set of metrics so that if it works, they will agree that they're going to take this to the next level, right? And we learned the hard way is that when you just seed and you don't create those metrics and you don't create those benchmarks, people just look at you as sugar daddies and they just want your money, but they don't think about how they're going to take this stuff across the goal line. So it's really all about expectation setting. So when we do these types of things and we think about scale, there is adoption of the stuff that we incubate, great. There is ownership at the business level, right? So that's cultural change. So when we started doing this 2.5 years ago, there was no one in GE who was touching marketing automation. And now there are 50 people touching marketing automation inside of GE one way or another. That's real cultural change. People, didn't know what Marketo was 2 years ago. Now people know what Marketo is. That's cultural change when it becomes part of the vernacular, it becomes part of a business plan. And what it does is it gives, in this particular case, it gave marketing a reason for being, and ultimately it gave us the opportunity to do more with LinkedIn. It gives us more the opportunity to do stuff with Google because we create an infrastructure that consumer companies, a la Amazon or a la Apple, are more accustomed to getting, which is understanding consumer expectations, but you create this industrial strength, consumer-grade experience, right? And I think that's kind of what we're trying to line up for. And so this stuff has really enabled us to do that work.
Yeah, that makes sense. How about, so playing it forward a little bit, you've got these tests, they've been working, you've got these benchmarks and sort of KPIs that everybody's agreed to.
Yep.
What's sort of next that you think is happening in this space? Meaning, as sort of nurturing begins to go to become more mainstream, sort of personalization you mentioned, does it become just perfect related to personalization? Like where does this go, and how many sort of steps do we have until we get to a place that it's really as productive as your vision is?
So there are behaviors and regulatory issues that stand in the way, right? The regulatory issues, and rightfully so, protect people's personally identifiable information, and good. And there are behaviors which are being adopted, which are opting out of cookies and doing things like that. Working with people like LinkedIn, where your audience is. In our case, it's very obvious we know where our audience is. It's what we're on is in my opinion, is a global race for permissions, right? So that we have the permission to talk to people in a way where they know us and they're expecting us to know who they are. Because you want to move away from the anonymous kind of component of it, because at some point that well may dry up. So I don't think it's ever going to be nirvana. I mean, a lot of us use the metaphor, what is it, Minority Report, where he walks in, Tom Cruise with the eyes, and it's Mr. Yakamoto's jeans, and everyone goes, that's really cool. And I think that there are some people in Oregon who might take to arms if that happens. But nonetheless, I think we are moving more and more towards a place where one-to-one relationships are going to be more the norm, even at mass scale, than non.
And in that world, which we've talked about over time too, is there has to be a very transparent understanding of the value exchange, which is me as the prospect of GE or me as a consumer of some company. I have to actually be willing and interested in what you're giving me from what I am giving you. You know, there has to be a really understood value exchange there.
Yeah, I completely. And I think actually you guys do that really well, right? I think you guys, I think what you guys do in terms of the information that you give people access to within their networks, they come to you with a specific expectation of what they can get out of that. And I think you guys have done a fantastic job of creating a value proposition. Facebook does the same. Google does the same. They have very specific value propositions. GE, we're still learning what the right value proposition is. It's not an easy task.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge for many businesses today with the sort of mobile and digital world and the transparency and the access we all have, which is it's easy for me to move away. It's easy for me to say no, or it's easy for me to find another site or another person selling something. So, you've got to build the relationship. You've got to establish the trust. And so the value exchange is not just what you think the value is to me, but it's what I actually think is that consumer prospect.
And it's really interesting because if you unpack that just a little bit, there's a really interesting, issue in that, which is you have to be very external in the way you think, right? So LinkedIn comes to us and they go, we'd like you to buy more ads. And we're like, we want us to buy more ads too, but it doesn't grow on trees. But when the partnerships start to expand horizontally, so you can create a nurturing ecosystem like a Marketo plus LinkedIn kind of partnership, you have to start thinking more expansively and be more external in terms of who you look at from a partnership standpoint versus just thinking that you can solve it with what you know. And that is, understanding that creates better opportunities to create smarter value propositions. And that is, I think, something that a bunch of us look at very specifically. There's a guy in the room, Steve Pepe, who's on our team. Where's Steve? He's somewhere. There's Steve. So Steve, bright guy, very smart guy, he makes this look good, which is not easy. He is very good at kind of understanding what the customer wants and holding us to task on that and finding us different ways to kind of bring that stuff to market. So, you have to be able to trust your instincts, but you also have to know that your instincts aren't always right, and you have to get external and you have to try different stuff.
How about, you mentioned us, Google, Facebook, so you work with tons of partners, I'm imagining hundreds, I'm sure at least. If you think about customer experience, actually from your side, meaning you as the customer to all of us that are providers or partners, we probably are not providing you with a great customer experience because there's all these systems and all these different things. Is there a future where there's one system? Like, how do you see you as a customer related to the customer experience and having access to all of these systems, if you will, in one place using your data? Or is it just never going to be that way, and so you're going to have to always have multiple systems to work with?
So, there's the marketing cloud, and there's the stack, and there's all these different metaphors for what it looks like. Great. That's from how many years have we been doing this now?
Too many.
643 years we've been doing this. So great. There is actually scalable platforms that you can connect and put together that allow you to do that. And then you put over here, which is this piece that says, well, it's digital in its early days and we don't know what we're doing and we're all still learning, which is true. But at this point, there's been enough to know that if you don't have the relationships with people, partners, companies that can allow you to create a scalable infrastructure so you can track, then you should probably be not fired, but you should have a serious career discussion, because it's not okay just to do things for the sake of doing them. They should be done with a sense of purpose. And I think that kind of piece of this scalable infrastructure and this stack allows you to do that. So I am of the belief that we are not in the golden age of marketing, but really at the dawn of the age of accountability. And I think that that's what all of this technology kind of brings us, is this accountable nature. Working with people, right audience, right place, the right catcher's mitt, the right infrastructure, insights that you can derive out of that stuff. this is building a marketing framework that works.
Yeah. I do want to, we're going to open up for questions, so just letting everybody know that next couple minutes we'll sort of turn to the audience if you guys do have questions. So again, along those lines, if there's not one system, one magic system that will sort of, everybody will work sort of through your own system, who are your own sort of internal constituents? Meaning you've got agencies, you've got in-house sort of creative folks, you've got marketing automation specialists, you've got, so, you know, how do you as a business think about tackling all of these opportunities in the most productive, sort of scalable, efficient way?
So I feel like I've been at GE for 6 years, and I feel like I was 22 when I started, because there are certain things that age you incredibly fast, which is you think you know everything that's going inside of your company, and then you find out that you really know nothing, because all these people are doing things over here that you never thought anyone was really doing. And that probably ages me more than anything else. And I learned some very valuable career lessons early on when I tried to do this. And I said, I own it. And people gave me the finger, and it wasn't that one, right? And I learned some lessons. And so you really become an enabler, right? So if there are people in Indonesia that want to run their stack that way, then they're going to run their stack that way. What we can do is we can create reasons and best practices and benchmarks and standards and sharing opportunities, scalable pricing. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult to control what goes on inside of a company like GE. And we are not the smartest people in the room, right? It's like, just because I sit on this stage with you doesn't mean that there isn't some great person in Indonesia who knows twice as much as what I do and sees things differently, and therefore they should be enabled to go do the things that they need to be able to go do. So we try to set up enterprise stuff, and we don't use the word enterprise, but we say, here's what people are using, select, but if you bring someone in, you know, have a good reason why, and share back out what you're learning. And that's the best you can do.
It's been a decentralized model.
Very much so, yeah.
Okay. Any quick questions first before I keep going here?
Indiana basketball questions? No? Okay.
All right. So again, sort of thinking about the advancements in marketing automation, sort of nurturing this notion of personalization, what about sort of the website experience? All these different touch points you have, and that's website, that's all your social channels. Are they aligned? Are they consistent? You know, and I would say, speaking from the business unit perspective, but then also corporate, you know, I think about just the amount of information large companies publish today, content producers at the end of the day. You know, how do you manage that? Because at the end, those are all marketing materials, messages, those are prospect gathering. You know, how does that work in this world of such fragmentation?
I have no idea, but we are trying desperately to figure it out, because in a decentralized organization, things exist in different ways. So if you look at our use of Salesforce, and we've been on a 2-year journey to fix this, it's called a customer here and it's called a client here. So there's no standardization of data across GE. And everyone's customized their instances of Marketo and their instances of Salesforce to the point where they're difficult to extract data out of and marry up across the company.
So if I went from turbines, or if I went from one group to another, it might be a completely different structure.
It's a completely different structure. And also, and you might think that is bad, but these businesses do go to market differently. Yeah. They have different requirements. So so you can't say that what applies to MRI machines should apply to wind turbines, right? It doesn't always work that way. So the aspect is this. So Steve and we're working on a customer experience right now, and we're really trying to think about what are some key triggers and touch points that create better customer experience, right? Because there are some thoughts around this, right? So customer experience can add value and therefore margin back in if you do it the right way, right? You think about companies that surprise and delight you. The Ritz-Carlton, I think it is, the employees get $2,000 a year to buy customers whatever they need to create a great customer experience. Southwest Airlines, they have a mandate, and we have to kind of understand what those types of things can look like so we can surprise and delight. We can deliver stuff on time. If we're not delivering stuff on time, can we let people know that before it's too late? When people call us up on an 800 number, can they access information at the phone so that you can see across the this customer account? That stuff is a definite journey for us right now. We are nowhere near perfect.
And in that, you bring up two companies that are more sort of in the sort of B2C space. Clearly, hospitality, that's sort of their business to take care of customers. But I think you're also speaking about customer experience just from a much more macro perspective. Why do you think that just focus for so many companies now has to be on the overall customer experience? One thing that I think about a lot is there's no real difference today from B2C companies to B2B in terms of how you have to treat customers, because of all of us are walking in both worlds, right? We are consumers and we are potentially business customers. We all have bought sort of Apple products, and we've had that delight experience of opening that box and it's perfectly there, and the Amazon experience where it gets, it's again a very good personal experience. Are those the types of companies that are sort of pushing all of us to think differently about customer experience?
Yeah, completely. God, there's so many things and only 3 minutes and 57 seconds left. So it is consumer grade experience, industrial strength. Right, that's how we think about things. B2C versus B2B. In this particular case, B2C experiences will translate into a B2B environment. If I can buy on e-commerce, if I can buy over a mobile device, when can I buy a jet engine over a mobile device? Not tomorrow, who knows if ever, but there's an expectation. Click to chat, right? Know me when I call you, right? Where's my stuff? Domino's. Watch your pizza being delivered, you're being made. Those are expectations and standards that are being set, and I think are super critical to how we think about creating what great customer experience looks like moving forward. The second thing I just want to hit on in that is there's a whole, if you're over a certain age, you have a certain set of experiences and expectations. If you're under a certain age, you have a completely different set of experiences. So I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk on CNBC, and he was talking about a certain company, who I won't say out loud, but he was talking about this company, and he was talking about digital, and then there were two other analysts talking about this one company who is a software company, I guess, if you will, and they were talking about what this company needs to do, and he said, look, here's the problem. I don't know if there's a CTO under the age of 35 that knows what these people do. So you have to create experiences and talk to people storytelling-wise in venues and ways that they are accustomed to hearing, because otherwise you run the risk of aging out an entire group if you don't adopt to what's coming up the stream.
Yeah, makes total sense on that. Checking again on, we got a couple minutes, so just want to make sure if there's some. Yeah, right down here. I think we got a mic right behind you. If you just make sure everybody hears the question. Thanks.
Quarterly, annual, oh, there we go. What period of time do you look at for performance and return on investment? And related to that, how's the Jack Welch culture shifted over a period of time related to that?
Oh boy.
In 1 minute and 32 seconds.
So let's start with the latter piece first, because I think it's really important to who we are, right? So we talk about things like FastWorks now, right? We work with a company called Bionic, David Kidder, who wrote the Startup Playbook, right? How do you do things in a more agile way that we are systemically trying to imbue with that throughout the company? And I think that is, while it is not Six Sigma, it is still very process, because we're a big company and there has to be a way to roll those things out. But we're not, your father's GE anymore. I mean, there's a new market. And if you don't adopt with the times, if you can't service faster, you're going to get undercut by a kid in a garage in Stanford or in Palo Alto who's going to write a piece of software is going to kill a $10 billion piece of business. So we get very external. We know we have to get very fast. We know we have to do much better on the customer experience side. Okay, so hopefully that answers that part. The first part, which is how do you determine, It varies. There's no magic answer, right? So at the beginning of the year, our corporate group, and we don't sell anything in corporate, our corporate group had a dollar volume associated with marketing automation. By the end of the year, we were like, let's move on to the next thing, right? Because let the businesses handle the dollar component of that, because that's where they sell. What else can we do with marketing automation from a relationship standpoint? How do we do it with recruiting? How do we think about it with, investors and things like that? There's different ways to kind of think about successes if you allow yourself to pull back a little bit and challenge yourself. So there's no specific answer to how long do you give yourself, but we all report up monthly, quarterly, what's the results? What are you working against? What are your benchmarks? Where are you going? What are you achieving? The currency in our group is speed all the way. So we are always on that track in a very fast way. So hopefully that answers a little bit.
Great. We are at time. Just first of all, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Andy. I think it's pretty clear that he displays a ton of passion for what's happening in the space. As you said, we don't have the holy grail quite yet, maybe not the golden age, but there's a lot happening, a lot of advancements that are going to help all of us as sort of B2B marketers, as brands themselves, and building better customer experiences for everybody. So thanks and enjoy the show.
Thank you.